Now, the next thing on my list was the issue of having too many controllers that do the same thing. Now, for example, here, actually I'm going to go to a different rig, one that's not so slow. There we go. Actually, this is the same rig, but I don't have the normal map network connected, so it's a bit faster. Show my, where are we? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the way this GUI has been designed, and I'll be the first one to tell you that this sort of contradicts some of the things I'm about to say because it's not perfect. But this has, for instance, this arrow moves the upper lip. You'll notice that via set-driven keys, it's moving some of these circle controllers. Now, what I can also do is grab this control and move it up, which essentially does the same sort of thing, except it's only moving this one control as opposed to many controls to make a sort of posed shape. Now, the reason that we've done this is because we primarily use Faceware to do our facial animation. And within Faceware, it's the way it works is basically you want to try to hit certain poses with as few controllers as possible. So instead of, like, for example, if I grab these two controllers here and I move them up, actually he's not at a neutral right now, so not a good example. But what it's designed to do when he's in more of a neutral pose is when I move these up here, it's going to bring the whole lip up into a sort of straight shape. Now, in order to do that with the more individual controls, I'd have to move, potentially more of them, and I'd have to move. Can you guys hear the police outside? It's really noisy. Sorry about that. I need a soundproof room for my webinars. There they go. Okay. Something crazy is going on out there. Okay, anyway. The point is there's many ways to do this sort of same thing with this rig. Now, we've designed it so that the animators should be able to hit most of the shapes they want with this, what we call a broad level of controls. So I can actually hide one layer, which leaves me with just these arrows, and then I've got a circle which has many custom attributes on it in the channel box. But it's designed so, or at least this is what we had in mind when we first started, is that they would use this broad level of controls to do their sort of retargeting and to do their first pass. And then they would have the ability to come in here with a, an LOD level to kind of make smaller tweaks on top of that. So it has its ups and downs. Sort of what we've learned is that, sure, on one hand, it does provide them with most of the control that they need to do everything, but a lot of animators just completely end up ignoring this level of control, and they just only use the smaller ones, and because they have more fine control, and they prefer just to have more, I suppose you could say, I guess what's the word? I guess just more fine control over certain areas of the face, and not relying on the rigger's interpretation of a pose. For example, we've got many custom attributes on here. If we look at, I'm going to go back to my other rig, so he's in default. So if I look at the mouth here on my custom, on my control with my custom attributes, if I turn on the ch, now it's a nice looking shape. It's going to be useful in a lot of situations, and it's moved. If I were to count the amount of controllers that they move to sort of pose that, you're probably at upwards of 16 to 20 different joints being moved to make that, all the way through the cheeks and that sort of stuff. So for an animator to make that by hand is going to take them a lot longer than just turning on this attribute. However, some animators still prefer to do it themselves because they just simply don't like this shape. Instead of making this mouth shape and then having to tweak it afterwards, they would prefer to just make it by themselves. So with that being said, it's kind of nice to have, the different ways to allow them to do it, because you get to sort of open it up for people who, want to use either workflow. Also, if they have a extreme time schedule and they need to do things faster, they're kind of more inclined to use the custom attributes. So a quick question we have, is it a matter of things being predictable to use fine-tuned controls? Do they find they have to counter-animate the broad controls and that is why they don't use them? Yes, that's essentially what happens. Is they, and sort of what I was saying with this too, is they now have to counter-animate this to make it, to bring in some asymmetry or kind of do whatever they might need to do. Depending on the circumstance, sometimes they end up counter-animating so much that they would prefer to just make them by themselves. So you get both ends. You get some people who only use the custom attributes and then enjoy tweaking it because it's faster, it makes more sense to them. And then you also get people who just can't stand using them and never do. So, this is not a perfect situation. There never is one, but it's worked pretty well for us in the past year or so. Just people have sort of, when you're first training an animator on how to use the rig, it's often overwhelming because, some rigs you work with might have just far less controls and, a much more simplified interface. So, they don't have the, for example, I went to Animation Mentor and I studied there, and the facial rig is fantastic. It's all blend shapes, or mostly blend shapes, I should say. And there's a window that you can basically click on mouth shapes, and it just shows you. There's a little thumbnail, and it shows you exactly what they look like, and you click on it, and it makes that shape, and it's like so cool. So if you learn how to animate the face by using that, which is sort of what happened to me, when I went on to using a more complex facial rig like this, I said, oh my goodness, like I don't, I'm used to clicking a button to get a mouth pose, and now I have to move 17 different controllers to get it. And it's so when you're first training an animator, it can be overwhelming for sure. But that also goes back to the skill level of the animators and what their experience is. So Tomas, that's a good point. He says blend shapes and presets also provide consistency if you have a large team of animators, which is an extremely good point. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about having not just a large team, but if you do have juniors and you have animators with not a ton of experience, allowing them to rely on these preset shapes will, bring more consistency to the look, because you're not going to have to worry so much about them just making completely ridiculous looking mouth shapes. As well as, with seniors too. If you've got a team of 50 animators using the same rig and they're all making mouth shapes differently, then you're setting yourself up for some hard times later fixing that. So it's a good idea to find a balance sort of between using presets and limiting them, but also giving them enough control to actually make unique and interesting and asymmetrical mouth shapes, which is, again, kind of back to the focus of the webinar. In Faceware, you actually have what we call a shared pose library, which is essentially a preset library of shapes that can be shared across different videos, which is really useful because it's essentially a pose library like you might find anywhere, but it's built into Faceware, so it automatically will pose a character for you and that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. Little plug for Faceware there. So let's see. Is the rig better if it is specific to the actual video performance, or is it better to build a generic one even if you're going to animate it yourself? That's a really good question. That's something we run into all the time. In almost every production we do, the character is built long before the script is locked, or sometimes before they even know who's going to be the voice or the actor portraying that character, whether it's mocap or whatever. A lot of times the characters are done, signed off, good to go before you even know what the script is. So all of these presets have been made long before the riggers or the animators even know what they need to do, which is a big problem. And that like I said, in almost every production. The solution to that is to try to educate the people who are making those decisions that it's better to wait till at least till you have a script so you know what type of character you're building. You may have, well, you're going to have concept art and that sort of stuff to go off the actual, to build the actual design of the character. But, if you don't know that halfway through the production he's going to get shot and he's going to make all these crazy faces, and then he's going to, or he's a super mean guy, or he's a nice guy or girl, whatever. If you have no idea what's going on with the character and you just make all these presets, then the odds are that they're never going to get used. So not only do you waste money because the time of your artist is going towards building these shapes that are never going to be used, but you're also wasting more money because when the animators go to use them and they find that they're essentially useless and can't be used for what they need, they're going to spend extra time trying to figure out either how to make that shape, or it's going to have to be sent back to the TDs to make fixes and all this sort of stuff. So I would definitely recommend trying to get in as early as you can to the process and just educate the people on the production that it's really important for the setup artists to have reference and as much information about the character as they can before they get started. So John says, shouldn't there be a model sheet of some sort that should serve as a reference? And yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But you'd be so surprised how often there isn't one, which is a shame. Or Oleg says, or a video. Yeah, that's another good point. What we like to do is, when the client decides who the actor is going to be for their character, and again, as I said, a lot of times they don't until too late. But on the off chance that they do, which is great, filming a video of that actor going through like a range of motion and just doing some, doing some different mouth poses and show us what you look like when you're angry, show us what you look like when you're sad, and just do these sort of poses and get a character study about that actor. Or if there isn't going to be actor reference, at least talk to the art director or whoever you need to kind of find out what he's looking for, so you don't waste time and money building shapes that are never going to be used. And as John said, definitely try to get reference or a model sheet or whatever you can to help you. So let's see. Keep moving on. The last point I wanted to make about the whole too many ways to do one thing is if you are going to put a lot of control into your rig, make sure that you have a plan. Don't just hand a rig to an animator with 200 animatable channels and just say go. Don't rely on them to come up with the plan, because they're most likely going to do something that you have didn't expect or breaks the rig or any number of things. So I would always suggest, if you do have a complex rig, and maybe you build your own floating interface or who knows what, educate the animators. Have a meeting with them or at least the the leads, and just be like, this is what I imagined it being used like. This is what I had in mind when I designed this. Let me know if that doesn't work and I'll fix it. And the second point of that is always be ready to adjust your plan and to adjust your design. Don't blame the animators for changing their mind and wanting this and that and then the other thing, because that's just part of that's how it goes. I mean, that's not going away anytime soon in the industry. Animators are going to ask you for one thing, you're going to build it, and they're going to get it and say, oh, but I wanted this, and it's like completely different than what you thought, and that's just always going to happen. So, be ready for that and build it into your plan to have to make adjustments and that sort of thing.